Welcome back to another episode of Radical Responsibility Revolution. And today I want to talk about the most dangerous idea in America. So stay tuned because we are rolling right now. This week I heard something that honestly made me stop what I was doing, stop me in my tracks, and I had to replay what I had just heard. And it should frighten everyone, honestly. Honest, it should frighten everyone. But I'm not about gloom and doom and I'm not about fear. So let's talk about what I heard and what that means for you. Because I want to talk about the fact that the most dangerous idea in America isn't about money. It's about whether you own your life. And how do you even know if you own your life? I talk about metaphysics and quantum physics and spirituality and abundance and all of those things. When we talk about this from the perspective that is being propagated out there in the zeitgeist, it's it sort of freaks me out a little bit. But I also know that I'm in charge of my life. So I'm sharing this for your own benefit that you begin to become your own critical thinker. What are you thinking about and how much of this are you buying into? I want to share with you what I heard, which was just totally blew my mind. Martha McCallum was interviewing, and Martha McCallum is a really good interviewer. She was interviewing the Democratic Socialist of America co-chair, Gustavo Gordillo. And first of all, he's like really young. And this is the other thing that's so fascinating to me is that I remember being that age and thinking I knew everything. And honest to God, nothing. But I digress over this. This guy, he's being interviewed after Mondami came out with the idea that about New York City's big conversation about rents and freezes and landlords. And what he said during this interview about all of the bad landlords, right, making too much money, he said this: no one has a constitutional right to double-digit returns on their investment. I thought, what? First of all, I know that the Socialists of America are, the DSA is against capitalism. But here's the thing is that I think that's so fascinating that someone would actually say those words with a straight face. So in great Martha fashion, she asks him a simple question during the interview, and I don't have the whole interview for you, but at some point during the interview, there was a statement that these landlords are making a 12% return on their rental properties. And so, he says nobody's entitled to this 12% return. And so she asked a simple question. If a 12% return is too much, what's fair? Now, his response wasn't 6%. It wasn't 8%. It wasn't 10%. His response was, no one has a constitutional right to double digit returns on their investment. So in other words, he doesn't answer the question in the typical politician fashion. But then she asked again, and he doubled down. No one has a right. It's not in the Constitution. Well, last time I checked the Constitution, it's a pretty broad document and it's not talking about what somebody's not entitled to. It talks about that we have an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so, before y'all rush to the comments, this isn't about Gustavo. It isn't really about rent control. It's not about New York politics, that's for sure. Because what I know is those are not the most important things that were said. It's this concept and this idea. And that statement actually left me so cold. And it wasn't about 12% either. It is about something so much deeper that we are ignoring. And it's also revealing this worldview that's happening and a belief that somewhere someone should decide what is enough for you. Let me say that again. Somewhere someone needs to decide what is enough for you. And the moment I heard that, I realized we are not talking about economics anymore. We are not. We are talking about freedom. because I teach about abundance. Abundance is freedom, and freedom has been the foundation of everything I've taught for the last 30, 40 years. I've taught abundance for decades. And most people think abundance is about making more money. And of course, I weave that in there, but it isn't. Money is simply an expression of something deeper. It's an energy, it's a reflection of your beliefs around good and abundance. Abundance is about expansion, it's about creation and possibility and choice. And it's about whether you believe that human beings were designed to create or comply, which is what this is leading to. And that is a very, very different conversation. So I want to start with this premise that scarcity doesn't begin with money. And after 3 decades teaching frequency and abundance, here's something that I know for 100% fact. Scarcity doesn't begin when your bank account is empty. Scarcity begins the moment someone, you, believes there isn't enough for everyone, including yourself. So when I talk about abundance, I talk about it from a nature perspective. The universe doesn't ration out sunsets. The ocean doesn't stop making waves because another ocean might feel left out. The trees do not stop producing fruit because the tree next to it produces a different amount of fruit. Nature isn't trying to make every tree exactly the same height. We're doing that. Some become wildflowers, some become redwoods. Neither apologizes in nature. Creation expands. And that's what life does. I know what it's like to have nothing. If you follow me at all, you know that if you've read my book, Your Inner Billionaire, you know that I was broke on food stamps, recovering from cancer, hundreds of thousands of dollars in IRS debt at another point, looking at circumstances that told me and should have told me, if I believed in circumstances, that I was failing. But every morning I walk through the park and choose something different. I chose abundance before I could see it every single time. That's why I know it works, because I can let myself go down that rabbit hole of seeing circumstances. I'm never pretending. I always understand that consciousness always precedes circumstances. The feeling comes first. Reality catches up from what you create within. Then circumstances are the report of what's going on internally. They're not your verdict. So I want to make a statement. Capitalism is more than economics. There's a contingency of people out there that want to say that capitalism versus socialism, and we can debate that, etc. But honestly, we're having the wrong conversation, because capitalism is simply an economic system. And at its best, I think it's the economic expression of free will. Every inventor risks failure. Every entrepreneur risks embarrassment. Trust me, they do. Every investor risks losing everything. Every homeowner signs papers believing tomorrow can be different than today. That's just a form of faith. That's the creative process. That's saying, I believe I can build something that doesn't exist yet, which is so beautiful. And that's what we are, as we're co-creators of our life. But this is the question I wish someone had asked next. If people don't have the right to pursue exceptional returns, who decides what's enough? Is it 5%? Is it 7%? Is it 9%? Is it 100%? Who is the referee of your dream? I want to ask you that question, and I really want you to listen to your answer. Who is the referee of your dream? Well, it should be you. It is you, but we've outsourced it somehow, and there's a whole contingency of people that are seeing that, and I think, Is going on here? History has answered that question many times. But what do you really want in your life? Do you really want somebody to say there's a cap on your success? Everything is relative. Einstein talked about that. So, relatively, whether you're a trillionaire or you are going from being on the streets or on food stamps and you create $100,000 for yourself, it's all relative to what you're able to receive. I talk about this in my book. But if you are then saying, we are going to have an arbiter, who is the panel that's going to arbitrate this or who's going to enforce the cap on your dream? I don't want anybody in charge of that. I know I'm in charge of that and I have my own limitations, as do you, by your own consciousness. So Marco Rubio said something this week that I thought was very interesting that um, allowed me to really tap into what I'm talking about here. And I'm not quoting it because Marco Rubio said it. It just was a quote that captured something so profound. He started out saying that people think that communism, socialism, whatever version you want to call it, sounds good in theory, but that nobody has seen it work out in theory. And this is what he said: communism does not sound good in theory. The world that it envisions for all of us is small, flat, gray, leveled of all exception, drained of all that is good and noble in the human soul. Drained of all that is good and noble in the human soul. I honestly don't think I could describe scarcity consciousness any better than that. That's what he's describing. The smallness of it, the flatness of it, the grayness of it. Leveled. Everything's leveled. And it's not just economically leveled. It's leveled spiritually. It's the leveling of our souls. And yes, as much as I talk about everything is one, we're all godlings, but we're unique, individualized expressions of that one. And that's the world that we live in. It's a world of duality. And it's not a bad thing because we've chosen to come here. But I really want you to get that if we try to make everybody the same, we take away the uniqueness of being on planet Earth. Yes, there are horrible things that happen that we perceive them and call them that. And there are wonderful things that happen. But it's on this spectrum that we live, that we experience life. And if we can't do that, if someone says, okay, you're all the same, you get the same, you behave the same, you act the same, I don't know. That is not why I came to this Earth school. And so I know that we're wired to become. I spent years teaching leadership, and one thing became abundantly clear to me. One thing. Human beings are wired to grow. That's what nature is. We're wired to solve problems, to become more than I was and you were yesterday. We're wired to create, to contribute, to leave something better than we found it. And when people believe their choices do not matter, their effort disappears. When initiative isn't rewarded, and I'm not talking about monetarily, their initiative needs to be an internal mechanism, but yes, we do feel it in our experiences. When initiative, when your drive, when your expansion, when your creativity isn't rewarded on a spiritual level, initiative slowly, and it is happening, dies. This is not because people are bad. It's because human beings are created to become more of who they are. And I really think the greatest example of this, the greatest proof of this wasn't a billionaire. It was a prisoner, Viktor Frankl. Everything was taken from him in the Nazi concentration camp, except one thing: choice of his thoughts. And that's why radical responsibility has never been about blame. It's about reclaiming the only thing no one can take from you: your consciousness. We live in a country that has a Declaration of Independence that talks about an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Notice what it doesn't promise. It doesn't promise equal outcomes. That's what we're seeing people try to put that into practice. It protects something so much more precious. It's your freedom to pursue those things. Our founders didn't write, "We guarantee your dream." They wrote, "No one has the right to stop you from pursuing it." And I don't care whether your dream is to own a flower shop, own rental property, write a book, become a billionaire, a trillionaire, a sextillionaire, raise 6 beautiful children, teach yoga, invent something that changes the world, or simply build a quiet little life that you love. That isn't the question. The question is, who has the right to decide that your dream is too much? Well, I posit that it's you. Because the moment someone else decides how much you're allowed to create, how much you're allowed to build, how much you're allowed to become, they haven't just limited your income. They've attempted to limit the expression of your soul. That, my friends, is freedom. I've said for years that the universe responds to frequency. And today I want to add one more thought. Freedom is a frequency. Scarcity is a frequency. One expands life, the other contracts it. And every single day, you get to choose which one you are going to live from. I choose freedom. It is your choice. And up until this moment, we do have freedom of choice. We always have freedom of choice of our thoughts. Ask Viktor Frankl. But here's the thing, is I would like to continue to live in a country where that is relished, where that is celebrated, where that is exemplified. And there are people in our country that say that that is not the case. So choose freedom today. Choose your own sovereignty. Choose your own frequency. See you on the next episode.